Hi, 5th grade. It's Mrs. Gyoko with your flipped math lesson for today, 9-7. Today's objective is I can add fractions with unlike denominators. Here's an example problem for us. Chase walked to the park, and then later he walked from the park to baseball practice. How far did he walk? I need to think about what the problem is asking me to do first before I start to solve it. And it's saying, well, how far did he walk? And it doesn't add these words, but I know it means in all. So I have to find the total amount he walked in all. And the important information on my picture here over on my diagram is that he walked 1/2 of a mile from the park to the baseball field and 1/3 of a mile from his house to the park. So altogether, I'm going to have to add that up and find out how much he walked in all. So I'll be adding 1/2 plus 1/3. So here are the steps for how to add fractions when you have unlike denominators. So let me go back and talk about that real quick. So we know that the denominator is the number on the bottom. So here I have 2, and on this fraction I have 3. And the problem with adding fractions is that when they have unlike denominators, we can't just add up the numbers. We can't add 1 plus 1 and equal 2, and then add 2 plus 3 and equal 5. That's not exactly how it works, okay? If you do that, you'll end up getting the wrong answer, okay? So we can't do that. So we need to make the denominators the same. Another word for that is common. Okay, so common means the same. We need to have a common denominator. That means the same number on the bottom of both 1/2 and 1/3. So we're going to change those fractions to an equivalent fraction. Change them to fractions that equal the same amount but have the same numbers on the bottom. Okay, so here's the steps to do that. So step 1, change the fractions to equivalent fractions with a common denominator. So you see I've got my fraction strips up here. I have one whole fraction and 1/2 of a whole and 1/3 of a whole. And you can see that my answer, just by looking at it, is going to be less than 1. Okay, so that's my less than. So my answer is going to be less than 1 whole mile, okay, for Chase. He doesn't have to walk that far after all. So I'm going to change the fractions to equivalent fractions with a common denominator. And here's how to go about doing that. We're going to find the least common multiple, and that is going to be the new denominator. So I have the multiples of 2 are 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Multiples of 3 are 3, 6, 9, 12, and 15. So I look until I have found the first number for both the 2 and the 3 that are the same multiple. A multiple of 2 is 6, and a multiple of 3 is 6. They are the same multiple. So I can multiply something. I multiply 2 times 3 to get to 6, and I multiply 3 times 2 to get to 6. It just happens to be that way. And now I can write equivalent fractions. So I'm going to change 1/2 and 1/3 to sixths. Okay, and you can see over here on my picture how I've done that. 1/2 to get to 6. I'm going to take my 2 and I'm going to have to multiply it times 3 to get to 6. 2 times 3 is 6. Whatever I do on the bottom, I have to do on the top. I multiplied the bottom, the denominator, by 3, so I have to multiply the top, the numerator, by 3. 1 times 3 is 3. Okay? 1/2 is the same as 3/6. You can see that down here on my picture that 1/2 is the same as 3/6. 1/3, I've got to change that to get to 6. To get from 3 to 6, I multiply 3 times 2, and that equals 6. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So I multiplied the bottom by 2, so I have to multiply the top by 2. 1 times 2 is 2. So now I have 3/6 instead of 1/2, and I have 2/6 instead of 1/3. You can see over here that 1/3 is the same as 2/6. Okay, so now I have 3/6 and I have 2/6. Okay, so the third step is to add together and simplify if necessary. So this just shows the 3/6 and the 2/6 that I have. So I'm going to add them together. 3/6 plus 2/6. 3 plus 2 equals 5. And we are working with 6. The bottom number, the denominator, stays the same. We don't add the denominator. We only add the numerator, the top numbers. Okay? Because when I look over here on my picture, and I can see that I have these 6 over here on the bottom, I have 1, 2, 3, 6 plus 1, 2 more 6. And 3 plus 2 equals 5, right? But I'm working with 6's. Okay, so I've got 5 of those 6's. So I have 5 6. I don't change that bottom number. I don't add 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 or anything like that. That would not work. Okay, so that's the steps. We're going to find a common multiple. We're going to change to an equivalent fraction and then add together. So let's practice a few. Okay, so the first ones are pretty easy for you. We've gone ahead and given you the common denominator for both of the fractions. So first I have 1/2 plus 2/9. Okay, you can see that right there, going up and down. And they have given you equivalent fractions. They changed 1/2 to 9/8, and they changed 2/9 to 4/18. Okay, so you didn't have to change anything. So now you have 9/18 plus 4/18. Whoops. I'm not sure why I did that like that. Plus 4/18. Let me move that addition symbol over. Okay, there we go. So I know the bottom number is going to be the same, still going to be 18ths. I'm just going to add 9 plus 4 is 13. So now we have 13/18. If I could, I would simplify, but I can't divide 13 or 18 by the same number. So it's already simplified as far as it can get. I'm going to put a box around my answer so it's pretty clear where my answer is. Number 2. I have 2/6 plus 3/8. They went ahead and gave you a common denominator of 24. 2/6 is changed to 8/24 and 3/8 is changed to 9/24. Then all I have to do is add those together. So I'm going to add 8/24 plus 9/24. The denominator still stays the same. It's 24th, and I'm just adding 8 plus 9. 8 plus 9 is 17. So my answer is 17/24. If I could, I would simplify, but this is already simplified to its lowest fraction. Number 3, 1/4 plus 7/10. I need to find a common denominator for 4 and 10. So to do that, I'm going to have to find common multiples. Okay, so the multiples of 4 are 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, and I could just keep going on, but I'll stop there. The multiples of 10 are 10, 20, 30. Ooh, I'm going to stop because I already see a common multiple of 20. They share the number 20 as a multiple. Okay, so I'm going to change the 4ths to 20ths and the 10ths to 20ths. Okay, now to do that, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of everything else so that I have some space. You don't need to erase yours. You can just rewrite it. Okay, so I'm going to change 1/4 to 20ths, and I'm going to change 7/10 to 20ths. Okay, so I'll take one fraction at a time to do that. 4 to get to 20, I have to take 4 times 5 to get to 20. 4 times 5 equals 20. Whatever I do on the bottom, I'm going to do on the top. Okay, so I take the bottom times 5, I'm going to take the top times 5. 1 times 5 is 5. Okay, 1/4 is the same as 5/20. I'll rewrite it down here. Now I've got 7/10, and I'm going to change it to 20ths. To get from 10 to 20, I have to multiply times 2. 10 times 2 equals 20. So you have to know your multiplication in order to do this. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. 7 times 2 is 20. Or I'm sorry, not 20, sorry. 10 times 2 is 20. So I take 7 times 2 also. 7 times 2 is 14. Okay, so now I have 14 20ths. Now I can add my fractions together because they have a common denominator. That means the bottom number is the same. My answer is going to also have the same denominator. It's 20ths. And I add 5 plus 14. That equals 19. 19 20ths is my answer. Number 4. 5 twelfths plus 1/8. Okay, so I'm going to find the multiples of 8 and 12. Multiples of 8 are 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48. I think I'll stop right there. Multiples of 12 are 12, 24, 36, 48. Aha! I found one that's the same. 48 is a common multiple. It's the least common multiple. So I'm going to change the 12 to 48 and the 8 to 48. I'm going to change them into fractions with common denominators. Okay? So I'm going to rewrite it. 5 twelfths. And I'm going to change that, to 48ths. I'm going to change, oh, you know what I realized is that I made a mistake. Because if I go back, I think there was a denominator that was smaller than 48. Oh, there it is. I missed it. There it is, 24. So they shared 24 and 48. So you could do both. You could do 48 or you could do 24. The problem is if you do 48, you're going to definitely have to simplify. Okay? So keep that in mind. I could have used 48, but I think I'll go ahead and use 24 instead. Hope that's not confusing. You could use different multiples, but I want to use the one that's the closest, that's the least common multiple, and then I'll have to do less simplification at the end. So I'm going to change 5 twelfths. I'm going to change 1/8. I'm going to change 5 twelfths to 24ths and 1/8 to 24ths. I just have to find out how many 24ths. So to do that, we'll start with 5 twelfths. To get from 12 to 24, I have to multiply 12 times 2. 12 times 2 equals 24. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So I multiply the top times 2 as well. 5 times 2 is 10. So now I have 10 24ths over here instead of 5 twelfths. Then I'm going to change 1/8 to 24ths. I have to get from 8 to 24. 8 times 3 equals 24. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So I take the top times 3 also, and 1 times 3 is 3. So now I have 10 24ths and 3 24ths. So I'm going to make some space here because I'm running out of room. Okay, 10 24ths plus 3 24ths. And I add those together. Make some more space. The denominator stays the same, bottom number stays the same, and I just add the numerators. 10 plus 3 is 13. So my answer is 13 24ths. Okay. Let's try one with mixed fraction. 2.5 plus 3 1/7. Now adding mixed fractions is just the same as adding any other fractions. Don't worry about the whole numbers. You just add those together. So if it's addition, what we're doing today, we're adding, right? You just add those numbers. If it was subtraction, you just subtract. Okay? The whole number is the easy part. So 2 plus 3 is going to equal 5. So I know it's going to be 5 and then a fraction. Okay? So let's worry about the fraction part now. Let's worry about 1/2 and 1/7. My denominator is 2 and 7, so I have to find the common denominator of 2 and 7. I can go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. And the multiples of 7 are 7 and 14. Aha, there they are. 14 is a common multiple of both 2 and 7. So that's the one I'll use. Okay, so now I'm going to take 1/2 and I'm going to change that to 14ths, and I'm going to take my 7th and I'm going to change that to 14ths as well. Okay, so to get from 2 to 14, I have to multiply 2 times 7 to equal 14. Whatever I do on the bottom, I do on the top. I change the 2 by multiplying times 7, so I have to change the 1 by multiplying by 7. 1 times 7 is 7. Now let's do 1/7 because I'm done with this fraction. I've got 7/14. Let's do 1/7. To get from 7 to 14, I have to multiply it times 2. 7 times 2 is 14. Whatever I do on the bottom, I have to do on the top. I multiplied the bottom by 2, so I have to multiply the top by 2. 1 times 2 is 2. So my new fraction is 2/4. Okay, so now, or 2/14, sorry. So I have 7/14 plus 2/14. My denominator stays the same. It's still 14ths, and I just add the numerators. 7 plus 2 is 9. Okay? Let's try another one. 3 1/6 plus 4 2/9. Okay, so I'm going to add 3 1/6 plus 4 2/9. So remember I told you you can just add the whole numbers together, and 3 plus 4 equals 7. And then we just have to find the fraction. So I have 1/6 left because I've already added the 3. And then I have 2/9 left because I've already added the 4. So I need to find the common denominator for 6 and 9. Okay, so I'm going to find the multiples of 6. I'm going to find multiples of 9. 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 4 is 20. Or I'm sorry. Yeah, 6 times 4 is 24. Let's do multiples of 9. 9 times 1 is 9. 9 times 2 is 18. Ooh, I see a common multiple already. Okay, they share 18 as a common multiple. So I'm going to change both of those fractions to have an equivalent fraction that equals 18ths. So to do that, I have to multiply the denominator and figure out what I multiplied to get to 18. So how did I get to 18? Well, 6 times 3 equals 18. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So now I take 1 times 3, and that equals 3. So 1/6 is the same as 3/18. It's an equivalent fraction. Now I find out on 2/9. How do I get from 9 to 18? I had to multiply the bottom, the 9 times 2 to get to 18. So whatever I do on the bottom, I have to do to the top. 2 times 2 is 4. So 2/9 is the same as 4/18. So then I take 3/18 plus 4/18. I add that together, and I get 7/18. Okay. Now my entire answer, remember that was way up here at the top, was 3 plus 4 is 7, and then I added my fractions, and I get 7/18. So 7 and 7/18 is my answer. All right, your turn. You're going to solve some problems. I'm going to start with giving you some that already have equivalent fractions on the bottom. You have to find the top portion and then add. Okay? Make sure you pause the video and solve it, and I'll show you the answer at the end. Okay, to get from 9ths to 18ths, I had to multiply times 2. Whatever I do on the bottom, I have to do to the top. So 1/9 is the same as 2/18. And then on 5/6, to get that to 18ths, I had to multiply times 3. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. 5 times 3 is 15. I add that together. 2/18 plus 15/18 is 17/18. And that is my final answer. Number 8. 1/12 plus 2/3, and I've already given you 12ths as the common denominator. Okay, so since 12ths is already the denominator, it just stays the same for 1/12. Okay, because you just multiply times 1. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. So 1 times 1 is 1. Same thing. All right, so now I got to get from 3 to 12. To get there, I multiply times 4. 3 times 4 is 12. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. 2 times 4 is 8. So now I have 1/12 plus 8/12. That equals 9/12. Now, we didn't do this before, but you have to remember to simplify. If you get to an answer that's not simplified, you have to simplify. I see that 9 and 12 can both be divided by 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. So my final answer would be 3/4. So if you got 9/12 as your final answer, don't forget you need to simplify. Okay? Number 9. 1/3 plus 1/5, and I've given you the common denominator of 15ths. Okay, to get to 15ths from 3, I have to multiply it times 5. So I get 5/15ths. To get from fifths to 15ths, I have to multiply times 3. And I get 3/15ths. Then I add them up. 3/15ths plus 5/15ths is 8/15ths. Number 10. 2/9 plus 2/3. Okay, the common denominator for 9ths and 1/3 is 9ths. And since 2/9 is already in 9ths, I'm going to leave that the same. So I need to find the common denominator for 2/3 that equals 9ths. So I have to multiply 3 times 3 to get to 9. Whatever I do on the bottom, I do to the top. 2 times 3 is 6. So now I have 2/9 plus 6/9. 2/9 plus 6/9 equals 8/9. Don't forget to box your final answer. Number 11. 5/8 plus 1/6. Okay, to find the common denominator, I found the least common multiple, and that's 24. To get from 8 to 24, I have to multiply it times 3. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So 5 times 3 is 15. To get from 6 to 24, I had to multiply it times 4. So whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So 1 times 4 is 4. I add them up together and I get 19/24. Alright, number 12. 2 and 3/20 plus 2/5. Okay, I found that the common denominator is 20. And since the common denominator for 5 and 20 is 20, then my 3/20 stays the same. My whole number 2 is adding plus nothing right there. There's nothing there. So 2 plus nothing is still 2. So I'll put my final answer up here at the top. And now I have to change 2/5 to 20ths. So to get from 5 to 20, I multiply times 4. 5 times 4 is 20. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So 2 times 4 is 8. So now I have 3/20 plus 8/20 is 11/20. So my final answer is 2 and 11/20. Don't forget to put the whole number back and get your final answer. Number 13, 3 and 1/6 plus 2 and 3/10. Okay, I found the common denominator is 30. I'm going to go ahead and add the whole numbers, and 3 plus 2 is 5. So that's going to be my whole number. And I need to change the fractions to 30ths. So I have to get from 6 to 30. 6 times 5 equals 30. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top, so I multiply the top times 5 as well. 1 times 5 is 5. To get from 10 to 30ths, tenths to 30ths, I have to multiply times 3. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. So 3 times 3 is 9. So I add that together. 5/30 plus 9/30 equals, 14/30. And I can see that that can be simplified. So I don't want to stop there. I'm going to simplify it by dividing both the numerator and the denominator by 2. I can see they're both even numbers. I'm going to divide them by 2. 14 divided by 2 is 7, and 30 divided by 2 is 15. So 7/15 is a simplified fraction, and my whole answer now is 5 7/15. All right, guys, we are finished. I know that was a long one. Thanks for sticking with me. See you later. Bye-bye.